Hey everybody, how you doing? Today is an impromptu live stream. I wanted to touch on my series, which is almost done. This particular series, which is painting the portrait in oil painting for airbrush artists. Use a lot of airbrush techniques to get to this stage, such as, using freehand shields, freehand stencils, going in with an underpainting. So underpainting using Createx paint and also my Airbrush India inks, and then having a wonderful structure to go over it. So today I wanted to touch on bokeh and painting flames. Now, we're not talking like true fire or anything. We're talking about painting flames that are realistic in a photograph. And in this case, a very fast lens, low aperture, wide open, and you get these kind of bokeh effects where the lens will flare. You'll see the actual shutter of the lens wherever the lights are. And it's a great effect to have when you're going to paint realism. So this is going to be a great little class or live stream for you all. So the first thing we're going to do is I want to touch on when you work with white, especially in the flames. It's not just white. I mean, that would be the easy way to go. There's a slight bit of color in all light, and it's very rare that something is pure white. Jean Auguste Dominique Angada said we should use white as sparingly as dark blue, and there's a lot of wisdom in that. So the first thing I want to do is touch on this spot right here. You see right there, that's like almost pure white. So what I'm going to do is I am going to mix on my palette, and I mix with a palette knife. So the first thing I'm doing, I'm going to really study this. And as I study this particular spot, I'm going to say that it's almost pure white, but it does have some gold in it, so a golden color. So I'm going to actually take some of my cadmium yellow. Now in the airbrush world, that would be like, what would be a good airbrush color? Like detail yellow, something like that would be an equivalent in the airbrush world. Now it's a little bit of a golden color, so that means it's kind of leaning a little bit towards the orange. So I'm going to add a little tiny bit of orange to that. And I do mean tiny bit. So it's a golden color, but it's more towards the yellow than the orange. It's almost all the way to orange. I mean all the way to yellow, I should say. Just a hint. Just the color of, let's say, light gold or something like that. Now, like I said, it's a lot of white and just the tiniest little bit. So we're going to add a good amount of titanium white. And we're just going to add a little tiny bit of that yellow there. Not enough that you can discern it with the naked eye, but it's there, and it's going to have an effect on your overall painting. So now I'm going to get a detailed brush, a fairly detailed brush. Let me see. Let me see. I just cleaned some brushes earlier last night. So I have a good set to work with. Okay, and I'm going to work kind of thickly, and that's one of the great things. Hey, Philip, how's it going, my friend? Thank you so much for hanging out, and thank you so much for the encouragement on the painting. I'm having a lot of fun, and it's great to see you, sir. And so what I'm going to do is basically, come in thicker, because when it's thicker, it reflects more. And you get more of a sense of this this blast of light, right? And that's important to get that sense of the blast of light. So right here, we're just going to make sure. And that's one of the advantages of why, you know, an airbrush artist would go into oil painting, because of the added artistic tools. But the thing is, if an airbrush artist goes into oils, then that's like a real powerful combination. And I would love for the airbrush artist to go ahead and explore this as a means of expression. Of course, it's not going to work with custom painting, but you know, it's maybe you want to do a portrait commission or do a landscape or something like that. And so like this real powerful light is shining behind her. But it's not pure white. It has a little bit of that yellow in there, that kind of golden yellow color. Really give the effect of being at, like, let's say one of those French bistros or something like that, which is what I'm after. Now we have a little bit of this white here. I'm going to see if I can just add a little bit here, because you know, when you have like a fast lens, which this photo was taken, you get this kind of bokeh effect, which is really wild and really great. So highly recommend you know, trying to paint some photographs with this bokeh. Be surprised just how fast it is to get that real feeling of photorealism. A lot of times we shy away from some of the easiest things to paint because it is like flames or water or something like that. And right here we have that same powerful light right here with this, which is very cool. And then you can see there's like a little bit of an atmosphere around this bright light. Again, the reactions of this lens, you know. And the great thing about, let's say, a 1.2 lens, those photographers out there, it's able to actually capture light because the aperture is so big, and so you don't need you know, a flash or anything. You can just pretty much use the light in the room, even in candlelight, which is wonderful. So anyone out there, please feel free to ask any questions about, is it expensive to work in oils, and do I feel that, you know, that an airbrush artist would do well in oil paints? Those types of questions. Very welcome questions. So basically I'm trying to hit those like really powerful blasts of light. So you see I did this one here. That's pretty good. Maybe like right on the edge here. I'll just, remember, even with a paintbrush, just like an airbrush, the lighter the pressure, the softer the application of whatever you're painting. And an airbrush, it would be like, you know, the further you're away, the softer it would be. And, you know, one of the things is that you could use so many different tools to get all kinds of different techniques. Here I'm using a packing peanut. And if I want to blend this out, And I'll show you, which is really cool. Right here. And this is like almost abstract painting, right? Because you're not, doesn't really look like anything. So you just have to paint abstractly. See how I can use the packing peanut almost like a pastel or a stump, which is really great. Anything at your disposal. And that's really crucial to, you know, there are no rules at all. And you see how we blended that out. So we didn't use a paintbrush for that. So on this side of her, we are going to look and kind of discover if there's any color in these bright lights over here. And that's what I'm going to do, because this side is basically all warm. It has all candlelight, everything here. This side of her is basically dominated by a window coming in. So you see how blue this is, a blue shift, as opposed to the warm shift, because this is affected by a window. So that's really cool. Hi Patty, how's it going? Great to see you. How's everything over in Illinois? I'm always so happy to see you here, and I hope you're doing very well. And we're just going over some of the differences of candlelight. It's not just one size fits all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check on the candles, the bright lights on this side here, and see if the color is different. You know what? It is different. So on this side, it is mostly white, like 99% white, but there is a little bit of blue, and it's not discernible, but it will be when you go ahead and add a little bit to it. So it's not just putting white, but really thinking about it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add some white with the palette knife, and then white with that blue. So I'm going to take a little bit of, whoops, I'm all out. So I'm just going to scrape off. So do I go with ultramarine blue or Prussian blue? I think I'm going to go with Prussian blue because it's a very dark blue, but it's transparent. So it's going to be a little less powerful. That's why it's always good to know your transparents and your... So here we have Prussian blue. This is by a company called M. Graham, which they're great. And again, it's a... Ooh, it's hard to open. Maybe a wrench situation here. See that? Sometimes you need a wrench for everything, actually. Oh, that's really on there. Let's see. I'll probably try this. Hey, Bobby, how's it going, my friend? Great to see you. So I did open it with a rag. So how's it going, Bobby? We're working on bokeh and flames. More like how the flames react when you take a photograph with a really fast lens. So I'm just going to put a little bit of my Prussian blue. It's really dark. It's almost black in its value. But what we're going to do is we want to put a little bit of that in these bokeh here, right? In these flames. And so what we have to do is first put our white, which is going to be quite a lot. And the white I use is a company called Utrecht. They're out of Brooklyn, New York. Great company. And I'm just going to use the slightest bit of blue. Now this blue is a transparent blue. I mean, it's still powerful. But then I'm going to take just a little bit of the blue and white and put that in another pile of white. So it's there, but it's not discernible with the naked eye. And those are going to be the difference, because there's going to be a slight difference that your eyes are just going to be like feeling okay with it, because like I said, this side is all candlelight, all very warm color. This side is window light, so very cool color. So now what we're going to do is we'll get our white with just a touch of that Prussian blue, which in the case of M. Graham is a transparent, so it's not as powerful. So bokeh is really important. It's a great learning how to paint bokeh in photographs is a great way to really impress a client, whether it's portraits or landscapes or figure paintings. Don't be afraid of it, right? Just go head first into it. That's how I feel. There we go. So you see how nice and focused that is, which I like, which I love. How it really gives a feeling of you being there. That's what I'm after. So we're getting into the finishing touches of this painting, right? Hey Oz, how's it going all the way from the Atlanta area? How have you been, sir? I'm so glad you're here. How are you feeling, sir? So great. We got Bobby from Cape Cod, which is great. And so you see how it is a difference. If you look at this and this there, you can see how this is warmer than that. But if you're looking for it, you can see it. Now, over here, if we look at this kind of warm color that's around here, there's this little discernment right here, right behind this kind of light that's blowing out. There's this kind of beige color, and it's not just beige, but there's like little gradations going on and stuff like that. So let's see if we can isolate that color. Okay, so again, this is a very super light color, but it has that gold in there that we were working. Hey, Juan Carlos, ¿cómo estás, señor? So great to see you, sir. I love that charcoal portrait you did. Very, very nicely done. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do, this is a little bit more on the gray side, this area. So I'm going to change my mixture a little bit. So instead of pure white, I'm probably going to use, you know, a little bit of a darker color. And then I have some of that yellow color that I did with this over here. Remember that kind of golden yellow color. And looking at this, it is mostly, I would say mostly on the unsaturated side. See if this is it. Maybe you could use a little tiny bit more orange in there, just to give it a little more life. Bad thing about oils, if you just touch your oils, it will get on your hands and it's not easily removed. But everything has a price. So I like it on the just a little tiny bit more orange than just that golden yellow color. And what you can also do, you have a variety of different mediums that give it more flow. It would be similar to 4011, and you would give it a little more flow. So now I like to use like a sort of a dry brush technique. So I may get rid of some of the excess oil paint, and now I'm going to test it on here. and I'm actually pretty happy with the development here. I'm going to look at this a little bit over here. So this yellow, a little bit of red, a lot of light gray. And we're just going to also worry about soft edges. You know, soft and hard edges are so important. And this kind of wraps around. Kind of runs out of gas, this light over there. And then this comes down. And it kind of goes right up to where her hair is. And then wraps around this bouquet of light. B-O-K-E-H is the term for this kind of blown out lights caused by a high aperture. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of go really light here, but I'm going to add some more of this kind of brownish burnt sienna here. Oh, well, thank you so much, my friend. Mr. Juan says beautiful painting. I thank you for that. So I mixed a little bit of a grayish kind of cool, actually warm, right here. Just, you know, pay attention to that 1 second rule. Very important. And then we have things like a fan brush or something like that to get blends and everything. So there's so many tools that as an airbrush artist you'll really, really appreciate, because, you know, it's very similar to, you know, blending with airbrush. See how I'm kind of softening that, and then over here, you know, you keep your brushes separate so you can go back and forth. And like an airbrush, you're setting up, right? So it's not like, you know, you're gonna nail it all at the one shot. If it happens, more power to you, but it rarely happens. And you can get some richer color, like right here. Deeper values. Then here it's sort of like a real dark gray. So we'll kind of work this color into it, this value into this. And just stick with it. You know, don't get discouraged. Stick with it. You know, it's all very transparent, so you have to stick with it. Working vertical like this, horizontal I should say, you really got to be careful not to touch your paint because it's very dark. Philip says gotta go. He'll work in. Oh, you're at work and check in later. Oh, great. Thank you so much, Phil. So glad to see you, and don't work too hard, my friend. I'm so glad I got to talk to you. So right now we're just kind of bringing in this kind of gray here. And a little darker gray. Remember, gray is going to translate as blue, because all black is a really dark blue. The actual hue of black, right? So that's the thing. So we're dealing with hue, saturation, and value, right? The hue is the actual color. Saturation is how much of that color is the intense color that comes out of the tube. And then value is, you know, how dark it is. Okay, so now we can take a clean brush, a clean soft brush, and then we can kind of just blend this. So with oils, okay, what are some of the advantages of oils? The advantages of oils, it stays wet forever. You know, the open time is days. Usually, I work very thin, so my open time is usually about 24 to 36 hours that you can still blend. Sometimes people paint very thickly, and that could be much, you know, much more open. So that's like an advantage. I can work as thick as I want. You know, I could even apply with a palette knife if I wanted to. So that's an advantage. Plus, you know, with this series, I'm going to start another painting. And basically what I'm doing is showing that you could use the techniques from oil, you can use the techniques from Airbrush and bring it on over. And some of the other advantages, oil paintings are actually worth more. I know it's not fair, but they're worth more. The price for an oil painting is much higher than, let's say, an acrylic of the same size and subject matter, watercolor, pastel. If you're ever in a juried show, the oil painting prizes are always more. So it's just the nature of the art world. So, but what my contention is that it's not as difficult as, so this is my little blending brush, right? So I'm going to keep this aside, little blender. And now what I want to do is this circle right here is powerful, but not nearly as powerful as that. So we're going to actually work on that. Juan says, do you use solvents, those odorless solvents that help quick drying time? I like the drying time, Juan, so I don't use solvents for drying time. I do use odorless turpentine for cleaning my brushes and cleaning my palette. And, you know, you want your brushes clean because you want them to last. So I do use the turpentine for only that. But I have this one product I want to show you which I'm totally in love with. This is a solvent-free gel by Gamblin. And it doesn't smell. It's totally non-toxic. And it works just as good as, let's say, liquid or other things. Works just as good as linseed oil or stand oil. So this has been my go-to for the past 6 months. And you just put a little bit out there. And what I need it for is, let's say the paint is I'm doing details a little thick. I add a little bit of that gel in there and it becomes nice and watery, which is really fantastic. So definitely recommend. It's the Gamblin odor-free, Gamblin solvent-free gel, which is totally non-toxic. So it's exciting. I love it. And so that is cool. As far as brands, you can see I have an eclectic array of brands. Unlike Airbrush, where you can pretty much stick with one brand, like a one-size-fits-all, like Createx is my go-to. But as you can see here, I have a collection of different brands because different colors, different brands make the perfect color that is not available elsewhere. Like I love this Caput Mortem, which is a really deep reddish color, great for darks. They don't have any other brands. Winsor & Newton, this is a permanent rose, which is a really nice red, very much like a pyrrole red in the airbrush world. This is Maroon Perylene, which is, this is an opaque and this is a transparent. So, you know, you want to have the ability to go from opaque to transparent, because as you saw earlier, the transparent, it will tint the color, tint your white, but it will just be a little softer. And this is Naphthol Red, one of my favorite colors by Utrecht. This is again a fire engine red, but this is a fully opaque and this is a fully transparent. So you need an opaque and transparent. Williamsburg makes this wonderful, they're out of New York State. They make this wonderful gray set. I think it's 8, 6, 4, and 2. So that is a must-have. And so definitely, yeah, oh yeah, the red oil ranges are much more. I mean, it's been around forever, you know, like Sennelier's been around hundreds of years. Companies like Winsor & Newton's been around hundreds and hundreds of years. So the colors are just amazing and super rich in oils. And I definitely, if you love color, I highly recommend it. It'll just be, you know, a revelation for you. And you could use the Createx colors as a wonderful underpainting. Now remember, you can go oil on top of acrylic, but you can't go acrylic on top of oil. So let's say we did this oil and then all of a sudden you wanted to go acrylic. It would be a disaster. The painting it just wouldn't work. Oil takes years and years to dry underneath the surface. So that would continue to move and grow, and if you have acrylic on there, it's going to shift. So what I did here is I did an India ink underpainting, then I went over it with Createx Wicked colors, and then after that was done, I shellacked it, which kind of sealed it, definitely sealed it. And now with the shellac on regular paper, 184-pound paper, I'm able to put as many layers of oil without it seeping into it, which is really fantastic. So this is my own thing, but I'm sharing it with everyone because it's so much joy. And with this technique in oils, I sold probably around 15 paintings at an average of $200 each. So it's a moneymaker. So think about that. If it's your business, this is a moneymaker as well. So definitely. And so it's great. You give the compressor a rest, right? And you just continue, working. So I want to check out this circle here. Now this circle is not as powerful, and could be the light is further away or a lot of other things. So it's that same golden color as here, but here there's more of that golden color into the white. Thank you so much, Juan. I appreciate that, amigo mio. And so we're going to get that kind of gold color, and we're going to mix that with the palette knife on the palette. And it's going to be a weaker, less intense candlelight. And I think I have it. And now I do like I said, I like using the turpentine, which is odorless mineral spirits. It's not the turpentine that you get, mind you, definitely not the turpentine that you would purchase at a paint store. It's refined and it's for painting, so you definitely want to get the stuff. Gamblin has a really great, I just have to find my turpentine, I'll show you, because you don't want to always clean your brushes or work with the same color, the same brush with different colors. That causes some issues. You start to get a muddy color. So with a little bit of turpentine, you're able to give it a basic cleaning. Now, here it is. Okay. So right here, in here, I have a little bit of turpentine. So I'm just going to take this and just kind of, it breaks down the oils, right? Water and oil do not mix, so it won't break down. So you see how nice and clean it is. And now I can If you have pets, you always want to make sure that your turpentine is covered, right? Because they would see it as odorless water and that could poison them. So now what I'm going to do is, remember this circle is less intense than this here, but it is brighter than what's around it. So, and there's different ways to make it brighter. You can make the paint thicker so it reflects more light, even though it's the same color almost. So there's a lot of things we can do with oils. That opens up, right? So my goal is eventually offering an oil painting for airbrush artist course. And it really will be fantastic. I know, you know, airbrush artists are just amazing painters, very humble. And not second to none, right? I know a lot of airbrush artists, they say, "Oh, I'm not a fine artist," and I beg to differ. The airbrush artists out there are just incredible, you know, just incredible painters. They're just humble. See how it's basically the same color here, but it's much more intense because I'm working with thicker paint. And that's another advantage, right? You can work with thicker paint and create more of, it's called impasto. So you might be asking, how did an airbrush artist get into oil painting? But it's actually opposite, right? Oh, yes. Juan says, pobre gato. Yeah, poor cat. We got to be careful, right, sir? Definitely. We got to love our pets. Especially when we're artists. We have toxic stuff. And so you can see how we're kind of building up that kind of feeling of the light in the background and the sparkling of the light and everything, which I like. And now right here I have this light here, so I can kind of echo it if I take the same brush but a lighter application, just like airbrush, right? If you have the color in your airbrush and you're further away, it's going to be less intense color. Same thing with working with a paintbrush. If you have less pressure, you're going to be depositing less paint. So this painting is probably going to be done today, and not during the live stream, of course, but then I'm going to start a new one, which will start, you know, from the beginning with airbrush and India ink with a really beautiful detailed line drawing. And then from there, we're going to go in with Createx, Wicked Paint, and we're going to work on the color underpainting. Once that color underpainting is done, I'm going to do a beautiful layer of shellac, clear shellac, so this way it'll accept the surface. The surface will accept many, many, many layers of oil, and that's it. So it's definitely a very pragmatic approach, and you'll be able to get those beautiful hard edges in the underpainting and in the color underpainting. So it is ink, and acrylic goes over ink, and then we shellac it over the acrylic, and then the oil goes on top of that. It's very archival. It's something that this painting will last forever as long as it's protected from the elements. That's any painting, which is really, you know, really what you want. Now right here we have a basic, like almost grayish color right on the bottom there. So I'm going to come in and pretty much stay with that same kind of gold color, but I want to add a lot of this kind of unsaturated color here. Right down here. Again, you know, you want to make sure you don't rest your hand on your painting if you're working vertically, horizontally. So you see, like an airbrush, I probably would have to like have a beautiful blend and get the right value right away. However, I can pretty much just hit this. Same thing here. And now I can take my blending brush. Remember the blending brush that we had? And we can kind of, and with the blending brush you want to wipe after you blend. Otherwise you'll create mud, and you don't want that. You want your color to be clean, right? So how you do that is keep your brushes clean. A lot of times in airbrush, artists will, you know, continue working when there's a blue shift. And you have to set up a lighter color. You can't just go in, of course. You have to set it up. So I'm wiping and I'm blending. You see how now we have this beautiful kind of blend into this dark gray, and then the saturated gold into the very light. And it's a stark contrast. And here we use, remember we used a little bit of the Prussian blue in that white. And you know, we don't really notice it, but when we have a cool light bulb, like a daylight light bulb, it makes a difference. We don't notice it right away, but it does make a difference. Okay, so I'm very happy with that. Now, I do see it's a little bit more powerful on the outsides, right? These are like little subtleties that, you know, could be lost if we don't, like, look for it. So right on the outside here, it's going to be tricky, but it's worth it. Right on the outside of this kind of blown out light, maybe right here, we're going to see a little bit of a strength there. And again, these are little, I don't say they're tricks, but these are techniques, like having a bokeh, a B-O-K-E-H like this is going to make someone want to buy it, because the human brain is like, how in the world did they do that? And you can see, if you look for it, it's quite easy to do. It's not difficult. So we have to go after those things that seemingly look hard to paint. We break it down into its simplest components, then it's not really that bad. And I'll zoom in and show you exactly what I'm doing. And you can see when I'm zooming in, it looks like a mess. But that's okay, because from when you step back, it's like, oh my God. See how it's just slightly lighter on the outside? Just slightly lighter. But still darker than the neighboring candle. See that? Just slightly darker on the bottom edge. Very cool. Now, you don't want to go ahead and just, I don't know, just say, okay, I'm going to take this color and I'm going to mix it everywhere. You know, I see this color here, I see this color there. I think it's best to actually try and find the color every time you go in to paint a certain area, such as we did here. Now let's look at this candle right here, which is right over here, right? So we have the candle. I'll zoom out so you can see what we did right now looks pretty interesting. So it has a nice feel to it. And in the background, you don't have to See, the thing is, when you work in oils, you can loosen up, right? You don't have to paint every little thing, so you can, leave it a little bit on the sketchy side and let the human eyes kind of fill in what's missing. Keeping my colors, on the brushes separate, one brush is in charge of one color. So right over here we have this candle. In Spanish it's vela, right, Juan? And so we're going to look at what color is this. Very similar to that because it's still like there's reflections. This was a mirror in the background, so it's reflecting what's forward. And, so it's really interesting. Reminds me of that one painting by Manet, Edouard Manet, French painter in the late 1800s. I think it was one of his last famous paintings. And it's of a barmaid, and she's, kind of behind the bar, and there's a mirror behind her, and kind of reminds me of that. That's what really drew me to this image. Okay, so right here, we have this same thing going on here. And I really scrutinize and I say, okay, that is the same, but I'll mix it just a little bit differently. So this is, more of this kind of reddish color. And let's see right here. See, that's the light. So no, we need more of a deep reddish color going along with this. Let's see. And you can always test it. If it's not where it's supposed to be, go back to the drawing board, so to speak. Now here you have this sort of unsaturated gold color right here. And this is the candle in super, super unfocused area. On this side, it's being, see this side, you're still getting some of the candlelight, so you have the warmth, but on this side, it's no longer affected by the warm candlelight, and this side will be very cold, almost blue. Those are little things that if you pay attention to will pay off great dividends. So we're getting snow here in New York City. So that's interesting. So that's coming. So that means like other stuff that we have to do, such as shoveling and unburying our car, right? So that's something we're not looking forward to. Yes, mucho frío aquí. Well, today, no, it's interesting. It's like 45 grados here, Fahrenheit, but yesterday it was in the 60s almost, and tomorrow we're going to get like 8 inches of snow, 5 to 8 they're saying, and it could be even more. So that's very interesting. I like winter. See, right here I'm having a darker gray, but I think that works. We just have to make sure we blend that out. So you see we have the kind of the darker base there. And then this is kind of a cold gray, so I'm going to, remember, black is a cool color. Not like the fawn's cool, but cool in temperature. So we're bringing this kind of bluish color over here. And it gets lighter over here, but it's even more intense right on the edge there. So we're going to make sure we get that, right? So I'm going to come in with even a deeper cool color. So right here, remember, light pressure with the brush is very much like working with the airbrush going further away. So, and I also like to do a dry brush technique, which will, just wipe it on a napkin, and this way I control more of the amount of paint that goes on the surface. And then right here, it's pretty intense dark here. We'll put that there. These little tiny things that seem like unimportant really are going to give her a sense of being at this restaurant on a date, a happy moment, quiet French bistro, like in New York City. So it is a little dark, but we'll keep it there because I like to have the interest in the background. I mean, she's so interesting, of course. But I like to have some interesting. Here we have more candles. So maybe over here we could intensify the contrast so we have balance. We're not just painting her. We're not just painting the background, but we're designing a painting, right? We're designing a work of art that hopefully people will be looking at 100 years from now, and they'll get a sense of what was important to us when we were painting it. At this point, I'd be happy if people look at it, in the next year or so. But you never know. Always keep working. You never know if your painting's going to be the Mona Lisa. You don't know. So you keep going, and you know what? You keep shooting the puck at the net, eventually it'll go in. So keep painting. I think Goethe, the writer and philosopher, said, "Don't discount your genius just because it came from you." So keep painting, keep going. And they say the muses come when you're working. And I believe that 100%. Breakthroughs happen when you're just busy, head down, working hard, right? Notice that I'm coming in with just a gray. And that gray is so cool. Like, it's almost like a blue, because black is just a really dark blue. Remember that? So another thing is, I'm never going to say don't airbrush, because airbrush is a super important, beautiful medium. What I'm saying is if you do oil painting, it's going to help your airbrushing, because as you can see in this series of live streams, airbrush skills really helped me in this painting. So it's definitely, they will kind of help each other. Remember, iron sharpens iron, right? So two great mediums, oil painting and airbrush, will sharpen one another to create an amazing, amazing skill set. And this right here, I think I went a little overboard. So I'm going to take this other brush, and we're going to come back in with a lighter gray here. This is a cool gray. So I just picked up this particular tube of paint right here, which is by Utrecht, a Brooklyn company. And this is a cool gray. It's sort of like I would say it's like a number 6, well, on the color wheel, it would probably be like a number 4 gray, but it's cold. So there are times where you can pretty much have a shortcut color where I can just take that cold gray and utilize it right away without having to add. See this beautiful cold gray here. Right here. We'll just neutralize this dark. We want to bring attention to these, but we don't want to bring too much attention, am I right? So that's important. So you would think something like these candles in the background aren't important, but they're super important in creating atmosphere. Like a movie, right? The atmosphere of a movie, the setting is so important. Same thing with us as painters. You know, it's one thing to do a portrait with a black background, but it's another thing to do a portrait that, you know, has setting that this tells story, and you want to tell story with your art. Yes, head studies are great, but tell story. Storytelling is something that I feel is lost in painting. Even when people do, you know, a painting and they have a background, but there's no story intent. And that's what I'm trying to bring back in my own work and maybe inspire others to do the same. So that would be cool. I'm going to take this lighter gray and kind of calm down this over here. Take it down a notch, as Everell will say. But you can see, like, painting something like flames is not, you know, only the true fire flames. I mean, that's a very stylized thing, but there will be flames in different settings and backgrounds, and you have to know how to be true to whatever's happening in the atmosphere of your painting. Right here we have just a little bit of kind of a highlight here. But really paying attention to the color, you can just see that there's all these abstract shapes like a Jackson Pollock or a Rothko. I mean, it really, I mean, reality is very abstract in my opinion. And this light here on her shoulder is really this cool gray that came out of the tube of the Utrecht cold gray on her shoulder, which is pretty wild. Color is amazing. I think color, I mean, I think the true language is, I think the true language is the drawing, the line, the values, the edges, right? That's the language. But color is the poetry of painting. I should write that down. I don't know if anyone ever said that before. Here you can see that we have kind of a lost edge on her shoulder here. Beautiful lost edge. And then it kind of continues out here on this part of her shoulder. Very abstract, you know. If you get the value right and you can have a little bit of artistic license with the color, that's fine too. I'm going to make it a little more intense because I want her shoulder to be more important than the candles. See, now you see her coming a little bit further along. Coming further, I mean forward, I should say. A little more forward. But yeah, I want to create like a real movement where fantastic airbrush painters start working in more quote unquote fine art mediums and kind of invade that space because you all are just so super talented. And the amazing thing is when I first, so I'm a trained oil painter for 8 years, right? 8 years, National Academy, Harvey Dinnerstein, Ron Scher, George Basantino, Irving Doctor, Erwin Greenberg, Daniel Chard. So yeah, in New York City, like really the top teachers. I was very blessed. So now you can see how, you can take any other medium and bring that over to oils. But oils is a lot easier than airbrush. It's a lot easier. Wow, thank you so much, Marcel. I appreciate you. Marcel said it was amazing. I appreciate that. So with the airbrush skills that you have, you're going to be able to do stuff that you had no idea that you had that ability. Now right here we have this one right here, but what's around it, which is interesting, is a really dark gray. And I'm going to see if I can, let's make sure we keep our blending brush over here. I think I lost my blending brush, meaning I used it. So I want to continue the dark around here, but it is sort of a glowing yellow color. But I'll start with the dark, and I'll come in. Now it looks blue, but it's really gray. And that's the funny thing. It looks blue, but it's gray, So we're going to add some of this mid-tone gray here. Not the cold gray that we were using before, but this mid-tone gray. And we're just going to set up for coming in and defining that flame, because right now it's kind of loose. And that would be fine if that was my intention. I have total ability to handle that, to go with the looseness, and it would look just fine, but that's just not what my goal is. These flames are pretty important to me, the candles, because it sets the mood. It's the story, right? It's all about story. And the better our technique, the better we can tell that story. And, I would love to hear some stories, some accounts of airbrush artists trying oil paints, and I would definitely answer any questions along the way, brands, what colors to get. Now, a lot of people think that the barrier of entry financially is prohibitive with oils, and it's not true. I mean, it's cheaper to start oil painting than it is to start pastels. It's cheaper to start oil paintings than it is to start airbrush. And once you're airborne, maybe a couple of dollars a month, to get some more paints. Hopefully you're using the paint, and that would be amazing. So you see how I'm defining this flame a little bit now? Bringing that, I just want it to be, I want to focus to it. So I'm almost done with this painting, as you can see. Not much going on, not much to be done. But I still, want a little more focus here on the tabletop, maybe. The bar behind her, Would have been cool if there was, in the photo, there was a little bartender back there, but. And we got to make sure we get the shape right. So just hardening that edge and, making it a little less haphazard here. So it's called scumbling. So this is a dry area. So if you kind of dry brush your oil paint and kind of go with a lighter color over a darker color, that's called scumbling. Now if you have wet paint that's a transparent going over a lighter color, that's called glazing. See, it's a little bit darker here, so I'm going to intensify the dark. And I'm just using gray, and look how blue it looks. So in 2009, when I started working in Airbrush, I said to myself, I'm not coming into the airbrush world to do things the same. I came to shake it up a little bit. And now after all these years, I'm shaking it up by introducing oil painting for airbrush painters, airbrush artists. So if you are not, I mean, I'm going to get some new people because oil painting is going to attract new people. And so if you're watching and you haven't subscribed yet, I would definitely subscribe because this is an impromptu live stream. This is not scheduled. And I'll send an email out and you'll get notified. So definitely subscribe if you're interested in combining airbrush and... Now I'm not spraying... Don't get me wrong, I'm not spraying oil paints out of the airbrush, but I'm using airbrush technique in the airbrush in the underpainting, and then using paintbrush techniques with oil afterwards. So it's a very avant-garde way to do it, and I'm excited to share it. Okay, so now we're set up for this flame. So what I want to do first, there's this like real golden kind of aura around the flame, and I'm going to find out what color that is. I also have a brand new way of finding color, which is very exciting, and so that's I'll share. If anyone is interested in taking my mentorship program, we can go over this. Or if you, and I will be offering a course for oil painters for airbrush painter, oil painting for airbrush artists. So looking at that color now, with that little bit, I can see it's still that orange color. So that orange color over here is being affected by the other candles. So this one wasn't, it was more cool, but this one is being affected by the other candles. So I am going to come in with that kind of orange color, and we're going to really try and isolate what we're looking for. And like I said, I have a technique where I can really isolate that color. Okay, great. So it's important to isolate color. So you might ask, what does it mean? Isolate it from the environment. And if you isolate the color from the environment, you'll see it without the other colors messing with your eyes. So, and again, so when I mix this, I'm going to be doing detail. So I'm going to be adding that little bit of that solvent-free gel by Gamblin. It's going to give me a much more liquidy, transparent kind of look to it. So, and now we'll go back and I'll zoom in, and you'll see we're going to actually do this kind of golden aura around this. It's very slight stuff. But it takes your work from being good to very good. And it's not hard. It's not hard. And with my technique of finding the color of this aura, then we'll just kind of pull this out. And wipe your brush so you don't get mud, right? You don't want mud. So my intent on this painting is I want you to feel like you're at this bistro talking to this beautiful woman on a date. That's my artistic goal of this painting. And I have this same kind of glow right over here. So painting light is, flames is not just the, the stylized flames, but to really see what's going on temperature-wise and how the flames are affected by the environment. It's a lot deeper than just the stylized stuff. Stylized stuff is really cool, don't get me wrong. We'll just bring this same color here. It's a little intense, so I might not keep that. Okay, great. So now we're set up to come in with this powerful light here. Now it isn't as powerful as this light here. It's a little bit less powerful, and we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just gonna find that color that's a little less powerful and over here. Wow, so this right here, this light is actually being affected more by the blue of the window light, right? So I'm going to take that same blue that we were using before, and let's use a different brush, because you don't want to go from a brush that you use with warm colors and then go on over and use it with cold colors, because then you're going to get a dingy gray. And you want all your colors to be super beautiful and have a wonderful saturation. I'm going to add a little more blue. Remember, we added Prussian blue to our white because Prussian blue is transparent, so it's going to affect it, but in a lot more quiet way. So right here, remember, added strength or added bonus working with oils over an acrylic underpainting or Createx underpainting is that you can control the thickness of the paint or the impasto. And remember, the 1 second rule is always in effect. And thank you for the likes, I appreciate that. Plus another thing, oils is just so steeped in tradition. It's been going on since the 1500s. And let's take a look. We'll zoom out. See, it's just these little tiny things that add up to be big things, and that's what's really great. So the little tiny things add up to big things. And I really love this kind of work where you're really getting atmospheric effects. But you're not being like super tight either, right? So it's a little of both. Right here we have this light right here. See this light right here? It's secondary, right? It's a little bit less. It's I would say it's a little darker. So we're gonna go, so this is our cool color. So we're gonna keep this cool brush aside, and we have a warm brush that we use for our warm light. And it's very similar to there. Oh, made a mistake. Let me see if I can wipe that. Okay. So that's basically, let me come back here. Get to the right screen. Okay. So right here we need a much more warm color, very similar to what's over there. So again, I'm going to look for that color, and it's a very, very warm amber color. And let's see, how would we mix that? Again, you know, what you find is when you have a painting, especially a figure painting, is that a lot of the colors are very similar, coming from the same kind of hue and variations of intensity of saturation and intensities of value, but still very close. The hues are very close, because a lot of times when we're not seeing color correctly, our hues are all over the place, and it's just not natural. That's just not what usually happens. The scene usually is pretty much in the same family of hues, and that's what's happening here. The variation, the strong variation over here, is because this is window light and over here is candlelight. So very warm, very cold. But as far as our star of the painting, this young lady, she is basically bathed in candlelight, but her hair, you can see how there's some cool colors over here, which is, you know, it's just a lot of fun to explore. So I always mix my colors with a palette knife, because then your brush is pretty much unusable if it has all that thick paint on it. So I'm going to find that color. So again, so I'm looking for the color first. Let's see, come over here. Okay, it's a relatively light color, but it's not nearly as saturated as the other candles. I'm just going to match that color. Great, all right. And of course I did that with the palette knife. So now I'm going to get a warm color brush. And let's say I don't have a warm color brush, I don't want a dirtier brush. Then I just take my odorless mineral spirits, and I'll just go over here and get that clean. Now, when you do something like that to clean your brushes, that's just to break down the oil paint. You still have to use soap and water at the end of your painting session to clean your brushes. Alright, remember I put the top on because of the kitty. Now we're going to go with this warmer color. Let's see here. Of course, the 1 second rule, you never paint without consulting your reference. Pretty much right on the money. Now, the thing is, I can do a little bit of a dry brush technique, and I could build up the value as I go, as opposed to being too hot and heavy in the beginning. But working in oils is much easier than working in airbrush. There's no such thing as a blue shift. There's nothing I can't just, go over. You can do all that in airbrush, but it's a lot more difficult. Here it's really simple. And the painting stays wet. In my case, about 24 hours. Because I work pretty thin. So you see how we have still a candlelight, but very less intensity of saturation. And here's a lesser known fact, is that saturation and hue play a part in the value. Okay, let's see how this is looking on camera. Okay, very nice. I think that works. And let's see what else we can do. Do we see this value elsewhere? Maybe right here. Clean this up a bit. And then a very similar candlelight right here. Just a little bokeh peeking through. So you see I have to go thicker. And that's the great thing about working in oils. You have that thick, thin kind of application, more so than any other medium out there. See, just with thicker paint. Compressor's going off. Slight air leak at the hose, must be. But I'll be airbrushing later today. Not on this painting, of course. And let's see. We got that beautiful one. So right here, we just have kind of little indications of something happening here with the light kind of affecting, but it's a little nondescript. The lens is going to be playing some tricks. See, it's great because although, painting has been around, oil paint has been around like what, 600-700 years, they never had to paint bokeh and the effects of a modern day lens on a modern day camera. So it's cool. They say that, when they say everything's been done, that's the biggest load of garbage I ever heard. We live in a whole different time. We have different issues, different technology. So if anyone says everything's been done, they're not knowing about, all the different elements of painting. I think when wise people say everything's been done, they're talking about larger issues. I know in the book of Ecclesiastes, they said in that book of the Bible that everything under the sun has been done already, but that's a different element in painting. See how we're creating that kind of lens flare, which is really cool, and how it overlaps. So they're two transparents, but when they overlap, they create this opaque passage right there, which is pretty neat. And let's see. Oh, Patty says, gorgeous Tim, she's got to catch some of your feed. Oh, have a great day. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And Juan Carlos says, it looks beautiful, amigo. Thank you. And Juan says, how do you find the pace of working with oils compared to airbrush? It seems quite relaxed. It is, because it is quite relaxed. I really feel that once you get a handle, if you get a good teacher like myself who has a lot of experience, they'll give you that handle on the medium. Once you have it, it is very relaxed. You know, you don't have to worry about any mistakes or blue shifts or anything like that, which is just fantastic. So yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there, that it is relaxed. And I love that element of oil painting, because it stays wet. You see how I can just come in and kind of almost like sculpting with wet clay. I can keep moving back and forth and play with things, and you know, it's a lot of fun. And you know, it's interesting how, you know, when you're having a lot of fun, you don't want the painting to end, and that's kind of where I am right now. But it is ending. So the exciting part, though, is I get to plan a new painting. But like I said, since I started about a year and a half ago, I started painting in oils again. I sold like 15 paintings, and so you're looking at, you know, maybe $3,000 in sales just by working in oils, because you have a whole new set of clientele, you know, a whole new set of clients, which is great. And it has made my oil painting my airbrush painting a lot better. But then again, you know, the fact that I studied oils, you know, for so many years, it affects everything else I do, because that was the first medium that I really delved into. So when I do pastels, it has a lot of oil painting techniques in it. When I work in India ink, it has oil painting techniques and airbrush, so it's all connected. Okay guys, so it's 3:28 and I'm going to stop here. But as you can see, we're having fun. I think I have just a few things to maybe work on her hair, maybe the highlights in her hair. But that's it, and then you'll see it finished online. Everyone, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, Wednesday night is my main live stream. We'll be working on the portrait of a woman in a winter landscape. That's ramping up. That's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for hanging out, Mr. Juan. I really appreciate you. You guys are all great. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and hit the like button. And see me Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to go into full-on airbrush. So take care, guys, and always a pleasure.